I'm Steve Clemons. I run the foreign policy programs at the New America Foundation and write a blog called The Washington Note. I think one of the big challenges that the world has essentially is dealing with energy, dealing with climate change, dealing with what we have ahead of us, not only in the United States but around other countries, is what's happening in China and what are the big choices it has. And a lot of us have this debate and aren't very informed about it. I'm here with Jonathan Woetzel, who's partner in the Shanghai office of McKinsey & Company, who's just finished a brand new report that's out today on the internet called China's Green Revolution, Prioritizing Technologies to Achieve Energy and Environmental Sustainability, which is a mouthful, but I recommend people take it. It's really taking a look at China's cost curve in carbon. Can you tell us a little bit about why should people pay attention to this report?
Because it's going to change the world. China is the biggest country, it's the world's biggest energy consumer, world's biggest energy user, world's biggest energy importer. What China does around energy and environmental sustainability affects not only China, but affects all of us.
And what did you discover in the research? What are you telling us about China's cost curve in carbon?
Well, what we looked at was over 200 different technologies and what they could do to sustain environmental development for China. What we found out is that, in fact, China can de-link economic development from environmental impact.
Does Hu Jintao care about this issue? Really?
China cares about this issue because, first of all, it's good economic sense for China. It makes the dollars and cents, renminbi, for them to invest in energy efficiency. Secondly, China is very concerned about the energy security of the country. China does not want to have 13% of the world's oil production becoming imports to China. And thirdly, China is very concerned about the environmental sustainability of its own economic development. People in China want to have clean water, they want to have clean air, they want to have a safe and secure environment for their kids, just like anybody anywhere, and Hu Jintao has to respect that.
What's the price tag of what you've learned? What does China need to spend? You told me it was upwards of about $40 billion.
It's a big number. In fact, what we look at is about 1.5 to 2% of GDP, which is a non-trivial number even for China, a country that's growing at 8% GDP rate in the face of a global recession. But still, it's a big number. That's an investment number. That is not necessarily a cost. We have to look at is the return on that investment. We think there are significant returns to that investment, most of which can be captured through energy efficiency.
So let me ask you a question. This is about China. I mean, you can make the same argument about the United States. In fact, Barack Obama, when he spoke to Congress in a joint session in that sort of State of the Union-like speech he did, referred to China as a sort of a superpower of renewable energy. You know, rather than talking about it as a trade or a geopolitical rival, he said, they're ahead of us. Would there be implications in this report for U.S. strategy about its own energy profile?
Well, first of all, there are implications for the opportunities to collaborate with China. In many ways, the United States and China are in a comparable situation as the world's largest energy consumers, importers, users, polluters. And there are big similarities in terms of the energy profile, coal use, for example. So collaborating on clean coal technologies, collaborating on solar thermal, collaborating on electric vehicle development. These are all technologies where, by creating scale, the two largest countries in the world working together can dramatically lower the cost of this technology, speed up its development, and in fact save the world. So that's, I think, a big opportunity. Beyond that, there's a real question about how, for the non-renewable sources of energy, we're going to get along in the interim period, where a greater dialogue, a greater engagement, a greater awareness of each side's intentions and needs will lead to a safer world.
You know, just in closing, and I sort of, when I talk to audiences about China and its weight in the world, and I think you've described it very well, I try to describe to lay audiences how much of the world looks at China and the United States today. And I tell them, you know, in my mind, it's kind of like China as the Google of nations. You know, it's not necessarily what it is today. It's a fast-growing, high-promise, well-branded entity that's becoming something. It's the promise of what China is coming down the road. And America is sort of like Xerox, where it's a well-branded, underperforming, big asset that doesn't have the sense of ascending weight in the world, in the minds of some people. And it's ironic because Barack Obama has the CEO of Xerox and the CEO of Google both on his economic advisory team. So maybe there'll be arbitrage between them and we'll get a higher. But do you live in China and you sort of see what's happening over there? I'm always struck at a forum you organized about the sense of fragility, the sense of caution that a lot of Chinese have about their own situation. I'd be interested, am I getting it right by comparing China to Google and America to Xerox?
Well, I have a great sympathy for the America as being an American, and I still think there's a great reservoir of productivity and growth. But that said, China is the most aspirational society in the world. Everybody in China believes they're in the top 20% of income, and And if they're not there right now, they will be next year. And their kids are going to be even better. Any survey will show you that. They're the most aspirational. They have a belief in the future. That said, they're not satisfied with where they are today. So that's where what you're picking up on fragility is people's complaints about where they are now, but with the expectation, in fact, certainty, that in the next 5 years, the next 10 years, China will regain its rightful position at the center of the world.
Great, Jonathan. Well, thank you very much. Where can people find this?
You can find it online at mgi.com.
MGI.com.
McKinsey's
Global Institute.com. Okay, great. Well, Jonathan, thanks so much for spending some time with us.
Great.
Thank you.
Pleasure.